Welcome, councillors. I officially open the December meeting of council. Welcome to you all, staff and the gallery, to this meeting. No apologies. I just might add that a previous district clerk from the district council of Barossa sadly passed away last week, and 36 years. He was the gentleman that interviewed me for my job at the district council of Barossa. He sort of suggested to me that I'd had a few jobs in my career and whether I'd make a commitment to him if I was successful in that job to stay with council for a while. So I'm pretty pleased to say that I think I've fulfilled that commitment quite well. Anyway, that's a little side issue. But yes, yeah, so his funeral's tomorrow, so I'll be attending on behalf of Barossa Council. No apologies. I think we can move straight to the Mayor's report on page 5, 2.1. But before I move there, I just remembered that I need to ask the CEO to formally introduce a new staff member to you.
I think I've done the rounds, but Janine Harding started with us today. It was Marissa's replacement today, and she said hello to you, and I'm sure you'll catch up with her over the next 17 years. So.
Thank you. Oh, that same commitment. No, well done, and Janine was the first day here yesterday, and we had a citizenship ceremony, so I gave Janine the names to read out of the people who are taking citizenship, because you know me, I destroyed people's names. So Janine did a great job.
I forget the minutes first.
Yes. That's where I'm going back to. Minutes from the previous meeting, 1.5. For confirmation, the meeting's held on the 17th of November 2020 at 9 a.m. and the special meeting held on the 19th of November 2020 at 2 p.m. Would someone move those minutes be accepted? Moved Councillor De Vries, seconded Councillor Johnston. Any questions or comments? All those in favour? Carried. Now we'll get to the Mayor's report on page 5. Any questions? Someone like to move the Mayor's report be received? Councillor De Vries and seconded Councillor Troop. All those in favour? Carried. Consensus agenda. Any items that the elected members would, Councillor Angus?
Mayor, withdraw 4.5.2.2 on page 37, please.
Page 27.
Or just, even if I can just withdraw to ask a question. I would like to ask a question.
Yeah, we'll withdraw it then and I'll get the rest adopted then. That was 4.5.2.2. Thank you. Any other items? Not, would someone like to move the consensus agenda other than that item? Councillor De Vries and seconded Councillor Barrett. All those in favour? Carried. Page 27.
37.
37. Councillor Angus.
Thank you, Mayor. It's regarding the Gawler River Floodplain Management Authority, and the letter from Minister Spears makes reference to funding that state government is giving, matched by us, is for no regrets projects that focus on infrastructure downstream. My question is, what are the projects that are envisioned before we throw money at it? What are these projects?
Thank you. Yes, thanks for that question. It's a good one. We was going to give you a lot more detail at the next meeting, but I think your question's a relevant one. We did have a meeting And we did have a representative from Minister Spears' office outline what those projects were and what the expectations was from the various councils. But I'll let the director, Mr. Maverick, explain what those projects are, and then I might have a bit further comment.
No, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Angus. Yes, so obviously when the letter was received, the board of the GRFMA hadn't met. So we only just met last Thursday, and as the Mayor indicated, we had Kate Hart from the Department of Fire and Water attend the meeting to address us regarding the $9 million funding that the Minister has put in the budget. So that funding has currently been held in Treasury, and they're basically looking to the board to obviously co-fund the $9 million through obviously the constituent councils. The sort of no regret projects that are referred to in the letter are priorities that the Minister has identified through his understanding of the issues within the Gawler River. So there are 4 projects. The first is some removal of trees that have, as a result of the recent fires within the Gawler reaches. So there's timber there that needs to be removed to avoid any tangles. Second is some upgrade weir structures and gauges within North Para River. The third is some drainage system works in and around the city of Playford. It's a project that they've identified in one of their stormwater management plans. I forget the actual name of the creek, but it's there. And the fourth is some early works on the Northern Floodway project, which is the actual project that the board has identified as a priority. So the Minister's only identified some early works for that project. Now, in the briefing that was given, obviously those are the priorities that the Minister has identified, but Kate indicated that if the GRFMA board has other priorities, it would, in order to unlock that $9 million, would have to provide a business case to the Minister for those projects as an alternative to the 4 that he's identified.
Thank you very much. No, I'm happy with that.
But it's expected that there will be matching funds from the various councils, and of course that, well, I guess the devil's in the detail once we find out just where that is. The representative indicated that they expect that the Gawler River Flood Management Authority to work out then what each council's contribution is going to be. And I think that's subject to another more detailed report to council that we need to understand, because the bulk of that work is all on the lower reaches. Some of that work is localised flooding issues, and we've still got some localised work that we still need to do in our own area. And the CEO is going to flick a letter off to the Minister of Local Government shortly, and we'll invite her up to show her the work that we've done in the past and what we need to continue to do, so that we can mount our case that we believe our best dollar spent for our ratepayers is in our own area. So, but there'll be more detail on that. Would you like to?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move that item be adopted.
And seconded, Councillor Johnston. All those in favour? Carried. Thanks.
I do like the title, No Regrets.
Main agenda on page 48, a review of confidential orders. Mr. CEO.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll declare a conflict of interest pursuant to Section 120 of the Local Government Act. The matter relates to my employment records and leave. See you at midnight.
7.1.1.1.
I'll move the recommendation.
Moved Councillor Johnston, seconded Councillor Wee Smith. Any questions? All those in favour? Carried. Next item is on page 50. 7.2.1.1, the elected members training and development plan, which outlines the various training that's available to the elected members, and including various conferences and seminars. Any questions?
I've got a question. Page 52, you'll turn the attendance for members to apply for attendance. We've got in there. Apply back to Marissa.
Yes, we'll update that. John picked the same thing up yesterday.
Thank you. Thank you, councillor. Any other questions? Move the recommendation, councillor Schilling, and seconded councillor Troop. All those in favour? Carried. Page 55
Move the recommendation, Your Worship.
is the Ombudsman's correspondence on the land exchange with the Chateau Tanunda. Moved councillor De Vries and seconded councillor Smith. Questions, comments? Do you like to speak to the motion at all, councillor?
I keep looking for the
Microphone.
No, I guess just for the benefit of the gallery or anyone listening in, we're just receiving and noting the correspondence from the Ombudsman in relation to land exchange for Chateau Tanunda. I think this is, I've lost count, to be honest, of how many correspondences, but it's basically just because it doesn't it's not specifically about any actions that we've taken. We're just basically being kept in the loop by the Ombudsman, and we're just noting that.
Thank you. Councillor Smith. All those in favour, I'll put the motion. Carried. Page 59, 7.2.1.3. This is to do with the principal office and other office late opening. Any questions that anybody has?
Move the recommendation.
Moved councillor Smith and seconded councillor Boothby. Put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Page 61, the monthly finance report as of the 30th of November 2020. The finance manager has provided a detailed report on the November activities. Is there any questions?
Move the recommendation.
Moved councillor Boothby, seconded councillor De Vries. We'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Page 64 is the long-term financial plan 2021-22 to 2030-31, an annual budget and business planning timetable. This is for us to work through those two documents. Any questions that anyone has? Councillor Boothby.
Just in terms of new initiatives, so at the bottom of the report, the financial section talks about the fact that because of the big project and the existing commitments, there's no discretionary funding in the forward budget. So I'm assuming that new initiative conversation is null and void on that basis unless we basically direct that a certain quantum will go into new initiatives. So it's a question, but also when it's open for debate, I'm just keen to have a chat about that in terms of community need and whatnot. Question first.
Just three.
Yep.
Three, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Boothby. The simple answer to that is that there are many levers to pull for new initiative outcomes, whether you want to do them or not. So it's really about, is council going to entertain new initiatives this year? I think obviously we did last year, but COVID-19 hit. I think in realities we should go through a normal process and include new initiatives, and we'll see where it flushes out.
So I take it it'll be similar to other years where we'll be asked to put forward, and we'll go through that process of in or out.
If that's what you pass.
If that's what we pass, yes. Yep. Any further questions? Not someone like to, Councillor Angus.
Yeah, I'm happy to move the recommendation with the deletion of the / not considered in part 2, so that new initiatives will be considered.
I'll second that.
Okay. Will be considered. Yep. So seconded councillor Johnston. Do you wish to speak to the motion, councillor?
I need to say that I think going this way, we do have the option of looking at all things that are coming before us. If we don't like them, we don't have to do them. But if we say no new initiatives, then it just makes it that much more difficult. When something that is worthwhile comes up, oh, well, no policy, there's no new initiative, so you wait till you know when to do it. So, yeah, I think that's the way to go. I hope everyone will support it.
Councillor Johnston.
I think I agree with Councillor Angus, and I support the idea that any move to entertain not considering initiatives would backfire, I think.
Yes, because traditionally something bobs up, doesn't it? Councillor Boothby.
Yes, so I support including new initiatives in there. I think what I would love to have though is if we can have in that first workshop some flexibility to have a conversation about what that might look like in terms of actually giving the community some parameters, because what must be exceptionally frustrating is when people spend a lot of time and effort putting in a new initiative request that we straight away lock out because either we don't have the funds or it doesn't fit with our priorities. If we actually don't communicate any kind of parameters around that, it makes it pretty difficult for people. So again, going back to the work that we did 7 years ago now, when we dissolved and we did the Section 41 committee changes, we talked then about having things like a sport and rec fund, having a community development fund. I would love to, I'll put it on the table yet again before I finish my term, to try and give that a growth, because that actually can have some criteria around that, and then there's some sort of way of actually having, projects compete with each other if they need to, some sort of fair and equitable way of doing it, rather than us sitting around a table just saying what we think or what we don't think. So I'd just be keen to at least have a conversation around that if we can.
CEO.
So to allow sufficient time, is council happy to have a workshop after the next council meeting to work through that in another matter?
Because we don't have a workshop in January, do we? That seems reasonable.
Yeah.
So that'll set some of those parameters that you're talking about, so that there's not a lot of effort put into things which are really never going to see light of day. Is that you?
Good idea.
That's good of you. I just think it's important to recognise we need to manage community expectations, because if we have the staff doing a lot of additional work as well, that has some risks to it. So I think it's important to manage community expectations.
So from that, we'll have a workshop at the next meeting, work some of those things out. Any other questions? All those in favour? Carried. Next item is on page 70, request for funding, completion of a veranda at the Newry multi-use change rooms, 7.3.1.1. Is there any question?
The recommendation you made.
Question
first.
I just want to seek some clarity about how developer contributions maybe for open space relates to expenditure on hard infrastructure. Is that an appropriate use of that funding, or should it come from another bucket?
Ms Thomas.
Through you, Mayor, that's entirely to your determination. It's previously we've used it for a variety of purely open space, and also operational related to open space, which is, I guess, where this fits in.
And is it the case that the developer contributions come from URIP developments, or is it broadly across the valley?
So it's we target the contributions that come from a particular locality to projects within that locality.
Thank you.
And I believe as part of the budget process, we will see that reserve fund and where they've come from, so we can make some decisions with future allocations from there. And
You move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Moved Councillor DeBreeze, seconded Councillor Boothby. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, I think this is actually good use of those funds. Building assets all around the district on lots of little reserves, which then have to be maintained. I think that should be carefully targeted, and I think this is a good way to sort of get the best bang for the buck. I think that with more extreme weather coming along in the summer and in the winter, I think a veranda for those who can't get into the change rooms makes a lot of sense, and also this will just help finish off the job properly. So I think it's a great idea.
Councillor Boothby? Any questions, comment? All those in favour? Carried. Page 80, 7.3.2.1, deed of variation for the Commonwealth Home Support Program. And that gives authorisation for the Chief Executive Officer and the Mayor to sign and seal that deed of variation. Any questions?
I was just going to move it.
Moved Councillor Wee-Smith and seconded Councillor Boothby. All those in favour? Carried. Page 93 is the Infrastructure Asset Management Plan, and this is a document that's been prepared by Mr. Elding and his team, and the document is proposed to go out for community consultation. Any questions?
I'd like to move that.
You'll move to Councillor Hayvick.
I just
You got a question, sir?
not a question, just the how wide you the consultation. I noticed just the leader. People down Galway, Calbeaver, they might read it in the Bunyip, but there's no mention of the Bunyip or the Courier over the Adelaide Hills. I'm just wondering if we can extend where we actually send the consultation a bit wider than the leader.
Yeah, well, it's a very important document, and it's essential that people understand, because as you all know, you people set the service level, and this document does establish those service levels. And I can tell you there'll be things that I used to put in asset management plans that I used to come back to council and remind you that you set them. So do the deep dive yourself and make sure that you're happy with it. Councillor Hayvick, can I have a seconder? Councillor Miller. Councillor Hayvick, do you wish to speak to it, sir?
Yeah, just a couple of things. I'd like to thank Matt and his team for the work they've done on this. I think it's a very important document. It shows us where we can go in the future and how things will be, we would think about doing one thing over the top of the other, the assets and documents. So I think it's an excellent piece of work.
Thank you. Mr. Elding.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there's just a few minor things I'd like to tidy up before we go to consultation. There's for example, in the improvement plan, I've used, and I've had some feedback, I've used acronyms for officers' titles, even though there's a glossary, it's a bit difficult to read. And just a couple of other minor amendments that have been highlighted to me through the Mayor. Be happy for me to make those changes before we go out to consultation in January.
Yes. Yeah, they're more just clarification than wholesale changes. So yeah, thanks, Mr. Elding.
A couple of things, if I may.
The seconder wish to speak first.
No, all right, thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Matt. What a great document. It's very transparent, very open as to what to do. The only thing I would like to ask is, in the consultation plan, just a bit concerned that, according to this, the closing the loop's only going to take place through Facebook. So I just wonder whether, I'm really nervous about being highly reliant on Facebook for communication as a council. So
Can you? We can't hear.
Okay.
You want to shut the door because there's a lot of
No, not allowed to.
allowed to.
Can you just bump the volume up a little bit more?
Thank you.
Yep. Just can you repeat that again?
Sorry.
A little bit louder, Russ.
So-
Councillor, sorry.
You want us to write back to anybody who's made a submission?
I think that would be wise, but I also, if that's, it'd be much better than just announcing it whole. But I'm just nervous about the high reliance on Facebook, and I think in the future that's going to be something we need to tackle. Having our lives organised by Mark Zuckerberg is not a good idea. The other part to it, I just want to question whether or not there's enough wriggle room in the service delivery. I noticed that over time, community expectations creep and there are legislative changes, so I'm just hoping that the preamble in the report provides sufficient guidance for us to, you know, as community expectations change around disability and access and so on, that it's clear that our facilities are going to meet those changing needs. Thank you.
And that's a valid point, especially with buildings and all sorts of things. Yes, this building.
Through you, Mr Mayor, yes, that's correct. In the document, the hierarchy that's been set is that service level changes will need to come to council.
Yep.
So as the demand, and this is a 4-year plan, that'll be updated every 4 years, but if there's something in that 4-year period that needs to be reviewed in terms of the service level to meet the demands of the community or any changes through development, then that would come to council for approval as a service level increase. It's not a delegation that's given to officers, it's only set by council as service levels.
CEO?
And through you, Mayor, what I would add to that is that there is wriggle room for 90% of what happens. But if there are a wholesale legislative change that says we've got to do something completely different, then we have to.
Yeah, that's what I reckon.
Any further?
Following on from what Councillor Schilling said, it is very noisy outside. Maybe we could put a sign out there when we have council meetings just to remind people that there is a meeting going on, because people out there are having very loud chat, which is fascinating, but it's a little distracting. The other thing is, because of the way the PA is set up, in the past we used to have little speakers right next to us which amplified people's voices. Now, just for everybody's sake, I'm projecting, everybody else project too, because it is getting really hard to hear what people are saying. So Matt, you know, what you said was great, but it was a bit hard to hear. Do your John Gielgud best.
So I encourage you all to find your very loud voice.
Enunciate from the top.
Okay, thanks for that. That item, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Page 185, which is the proposed road closure 2021 for the declaration of vintage. This is an annual event in the Main Street of Tanunda. Any questions? If not, a mover. Moved Councillor Troop and seconded Councillor Wee Smith. Wish to speak to those motions, either one of you? And that motion, I should say. All those in favour? Carried.
No, it's about 5 people who watch it. As we're having coffee.
Page 187, which is the Planning and Development and Infrastructure Act, Business Readiness. This is to provide an overview of the potential resourcing implications of the new planning system and seek support for additional resources to enable council to manage a transition from the current to the new system. Any questions of Mr. Maverinack? Mr. Maverinack, please.
Yeah, just to rectify the allocation, the calculation was incorrect for the 6-month period to June next year. So that initial allocation should be 40,400 approximate, and not the 52,900 that's in the report.
Well, that's always encouraging to go the other way. I don't think you'll get any.
Question.
Yes.
So Gary, this is just for 1 year. Is that the?
So initially we're looking probably 18 months.
Right.
So we're looking at the first 6 months of next year, and then the 12-month financial year after that.
But it won't roll on beyond that.
We'll monitor it to see where the demand goes. Obviously, because we don't know how the new system's going to sort of transition. But it might be that we, will need that position ongoing. I know in terms of Mrs. Thomas's need within customer support, there's always an ongoing need for officers at that front counter.
Happy to move the recommendation.
Moved Councillor Angus and seconded Councillor Johnston. Wish to speak to the motion, Councillor?
Thank you. So it's a good way to go.
Councillor Johnston?
Likewise.
Okay. No further question. All those in favour? Carried. Page 223, which is the revised draft Phase 3 amendment to the Planning and Design Code. So this is to receive an overview of the State Planning Commission's revised Phase 3 code. Any questions of Mr. Maverick?
Are we roughly getting to where we want to be, or is there a long, big gap now still?
My assessment at the moment is that there is still a gap in terms of where we would like to be, yes.
A question, you wish. So the wording of this is basically that, in effect, allows you guys to keep pushing our point through.
Yep.
You're happy with the language, obviously. All right, I'm happy to move that.
So effectively what we're stating is our submission back in February.
Yep.
And reinforcing that, particularly those areas that the Commission hasn't addressed.
Yeah, no, that's what we want you to do. Yep.
Moved Councillor De Vries
I'll second that.
and seconded Councillor Johnston. You wish to speak to the motion?
No, I think we just need to keep hammering away, and if this language is going to get us there, then that's what I want to see happen.
Can't guarantee it'll get us there, but it'll get us on
Well,
the
at
way.
least it'll empower you to pursue it vigorously.
I think it's important to note that they are listening. Whether they take action is another matter. I did sit on the workshop from the Planning Commission the other evening. It was unedifying as to how many elected members were present. There were maybe 18 or 20 out of the 600 odd that must be in the state. So, it's odd that there's not a lot of interest in this. And they're very proud of the fact that, as this thing points out, the initial rollout's been working extremely well. It's only small numbers though.
Yeah, it is. Thanks for that. We did have a meeting.
So I just got to add before you finish up, just in terms of further details from the department. We have now a target date around about the 19th of February to resolve or have council's business ready for the new system. So that sort of seems to signify where the current minister's go live date around March next year, this Phase 3.
Thank you. The CEO and myself were involved in a meeting with some peri-urban type councils just to talk about some of these issues. And Michael Leonard was present, so I'm not seeing that we're going to change the design code overnight in any way, but at least there might be a forum where we can continue to pursue some of the anomalies that's going to bob up as we start to work with this in the future. Councillor Boothby.
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment in terms of, so my feel of all this stuff is that, the councils are just going to have to be hyper vigilant, for at least the next 12 months. Once this is rolled out and we're living with it, working with it, in terms of, the list in here is huge of areas that are still, out of whack in terms of what we would like to see in there. The systems are still, not where we'd like to have them. We just agreed to put some more resources in there to help manage that process. But I guess I would just be keen for us to have as positive as possible, mindset moving forward in terms of let's help, try and be part of helping to make the system better, rather than constantly saying, how bad it is and wishing it wasn't there. It is there. We're going to have to live with it. They're not going to roll it back at this point. So it's about, I'll just be urging, Director and CEO to tell us what you need to make this work, and use whatever channels you have to send the alerts back in terms of, this is broken, needs to be fixed. Because what we don't want is, what Councillor Angus has talked about several times is, unintended consequences of developments that we don't want to see happen that aren't right for our council area, but have managed to find a loophole through all of the net of, you know, spider web that we now have to work through. So I think, you know, that we have to have that kind of positive continuous improvement thing moving forward. But I'd really, you know, urge you guys to tell us what you need to support that, because it's obviously going to be a massive, really big, you know, quagmire to work through.
Thank you. Yeah, the Michael Leonard did indicate last week. Leonard, sorry. I told you I destroy people's names. There you go.
The man with the big moustache.
Yeah, the man with the big. The Character Preservation Act is going to be reviewed early in the new year too, so there's some pretty important things still coming up, as well as the water allocation plan, because it's one thing to have planning, but you've got to have all the other things come together to make sure that all of these things are sustainable into the future. So there'll be some more body of work coming up in the new year as well, which the planners will be actively involved in, and we'll have opportunity to have input in. And I did flag that the last Character Preservation Act was probably more of a rubber stamp than a deep dive, and to fix some of the anomalies that we know we still have here in Newry, which is just over the border into the light. Councillor Johnston.
If elected members haven't already done it, you might want to go to the portal that's there as a test and click on your own property, see what the layers and background and stuff is. It's quite edifying.
Any further?
Oh,
You
wrap
want
it up.
You wrap it up, thank you.
Look, when this first came in, the promise was it'd be faster, cheaper and simpler. I've had plenty to say on those subjects in the past. I would just hope that we can work with the state government and the local government association to see that the spirit of what the intention is does ultimately get followed through. This council, as Councillor Angus is aware, ran into trouble with the department in the past where there was a breakdown in trust, and there was an assumption that we were quote unquote anti-development, which has never been the case. It's more a case of we wanted it to be handled appropriately. So I agree, Councillor Boothby, I think that, you know, it is what it is. It's coming in. I think Mr. Mavronak's trying to be as cooperative as possible, and I'm assuming that that's going to continue. I'd like us to build closer ties with the department rather than collapse them. But again, I'd like the spirit of what the original intention to be, you know, the way this progresses, rather than just being removal of planning from councils and just being centralised, which I think perhaps Mr. Rao may have had some of that in mind when he first implemented this. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, sorry,
Mr. Maverick.
I just want to bring members' attention to page 229, just in relationship to a couple of the other community feedback we received, and particularly the one in Williamstown, George Street, Williamstown. I just want to know if there's a feel for members if we wish to pursue that in any way. I feel the God's Hill one at Lindock is one that we should pursue because it seems an anomaly. But I just want to know what members feel about Williamstown one, because it is currently its own township. Community members obviously want to see it not township but rural. And obviously because of the recent subdivision proposal that has sort of been floating around the real estate market. I just want to know if we wish to pursue that in any way.
I'll just clarify, there is some localised people that don't want to see that further developed, but there's a general look at the wider community, what that land division may bring as far as services and economic benefits to the town. You know, I think that there is merit in the fact that that was previously and still is zone township. I'm not too certain that it's a good move that we pursue that. I know that there is some pockets of people who would like that to not go ahead, and I understand that, because if you're living next door to those areas, you like to keep the country feel. But for the town's economic viability, as well as the services that it will bring, the Williamstown community is actively trying to pursue a supermarket, and the supermarket gentleman who's looking to progress that further is very keen to see that there is further development within the town to make his venture profitable. So it's up to you if you want to pursue it. it's really a direction you'll need to give to staff, or else we just let it flow. Councillor Louise-Smith?
I just had a quick question for Mr Mavronak. Just to clarify, that was one of the last or the last sort of block that's available to be subdivided in the township zone?
Very much is one of the key parcels, yes, in the town.
I tend to agree with the Mayor. I mean, I've had similar conversations with the same people. I think the God's Hill development is something that we do need to look into, but this one might just be best left to the keeper.
So just for clarification, what are they proposing? What's being proposed?
The community that are opposed to the subdivision are obviously wanting to have the site zoned rural rather than the current township. So the township zone would allow the subdivision to go ahead, provided all the engineering issues are resolvable.
They're asking us to strip away the rights of a person who owns this land to develop it.
It would have to go
That's
through.
a pretty serious thing to do.
As I said in my report, I don't believe the Commission will consider it.
No.
But like I said, they asked me to bring it to Council's attention, so I've clearly done that with that intention. But again, I agree with me. I think it would be very difficult to argue to downzone it to rural from township.
The risk of speaking when I've closed the agenda item, there's no way that would get through.
No, look, and you've closed the debate.
Yeah.
I did allow that little bit of extra because I think it's important clarification. So if not, I'll put the motion now. All those in favour? Carried. 294, which is the Bush Gardens Urban Design Framework, and this is to approve the 2020 update of the Bush Gardens Urban Design Framework post consultation. Any questions? Someone like to put the motion? Councillor Schilling, seconded Councillor Haybick. All those in favour? Carried. Page 319, which is the Bush Gardens Open Space and Places for People Grant acquittal documents. Any questions? Councillor Barrett, move Councillor Barrett. And seconded Councillor Boothby. Do you wish to speak to it, Councillor?
No, we've got to spend the money to acquit the grant, so move on with it.
Okay. All those in favour? Carry. We'll now move to 7.5.5, which is on page 338, which is to do with the proposed mandatory green waste organic service community consultation result. And this is to present council with the results of the community consultation that was conducted between the 6th and the 27th of October, proposing that a curbside organic service be moved to mandatory. Any questions? Councillor Louise-Smith and then Councillor Haybick.
Just this one's based on the recommendation before us. We're talking about a service exception for properties that are able to demonstrate they effectively manage their green waste. What are the parameters for that?
So what we're probably looking at is whether they've got a compost service in their backyard, whether they've got other mechanisms to actually maintain on their property. These are the sort of things that we're thinking of in terms of criteria. So we will set up those criteria and we'll probably have to have some sort of process where they provide evidence to do so, similar to the way we do the current special circumstances licence. So where for large families or for medical reasons, they provide us with evidence that they are a large family or require that special medical condition. So it'll be along those similar lines.
Sort of a question, sort of not. My concern around that is that this could be quite subjective without very clear defined parameters. You know, one person's perception of what is good composting, etc., may be different to someone else's, and likewise between officers. So I think before proceeding down that route, I'd be more comfortable to actually see a clear black and white, look, this is what we're looking for.
So what, if council was to move this way, obviously we've got the 6 months leading up to the new service commencing 1 July. So part of that would be in terms of the education information that we'll produce, would also be the criteria. So we can definitely bring that back to council before we implement.
Councillor Hayvick and then Councillor Johnston.
I've just got a couple of questions, Mayor. First one is, will the grant money cover all bins if it's going to be mandatory?
No, it doesn't. The grant is only for the kitchen caddies and for the education program. So the actual rollout of the bins themselves is part of the contract, and we'll have to pay for those rollouts.
Okay, so if not, will all ratepayers who receive a bin be charged the extra $53? If so, was this part of the consultation?
So as part of the current fee structure, the service charge is based on the number of services and the cost of the actual collection and disposal. So the current $50 is based on the current calculation, and if the increase in services goes through, then the service charge may change. It may drop down to, $45. I can't tell you, because it's based on the total cost of the service. So obviously what we're trying to do is reduce the cost to council by reducing the waste to landfill, and therefore decreasing that cost, and then looking at the number of services for the waste bins. So it's dependent on the number of residents.
I agree with that. But I think it was 55% of people said yes, we are in support of the bin, the green waste bin, and 45% said no. So what I'm asking is, was the part where people will be charged extra, get the extra, if they get the mandatory bin, will that be an extra charge on there?
If it goes mandatory, yes, the green bin is extra charge on their rates. It's a service charge, so because they'll be having a 3-bin system, not a 2-bin system.
That's right.
So they will be actually paying more, but in terms of what that service charge would be, it's likely that it'll be hopefully less than the current $50 odd.
But was that part of the consultation?
In terms of the cost, yes, we sort of highlighted that.
So
but in terms of the actual cost, no, we couldn't tell them.
I think there's some of the people who voted for it might think otherwise when they know they can.
Clearly, if you look at the commentary, that some people don't want to pay for a mandatory service. That's clear in the consultation results.
Okay. Councillor Johnston.
I'd just like to remind the chamber that 40% of the contents of the red bins is organic.
We have questions.
So,
yeah, I just need to define it to questions of Mr. Mavronack.
We're not
before we go into debate. Yeah, stay with the questions. Yep.
Thank you.
I'm happy to move the recommendation, Mayor, and I can debate if that helps.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Seconded. So it's moved and seconded. Would you speak to it, please?
Yeah. So for me, we talked about this at the last workshop. This is about leadership for us, both in terms of social responsibility, environmental responsibility and economic responsibility. So I understand what you're saying, Councillor Hayvick, in terms of the consultation, was close to line ball with the number of people 110 people I think it was, that responded out of 22,000. So, to me, what I would love to see if this is supported is, as part of the education program, is actually a communication program to actually talk to people about those 3 different things: the social responsibility, economic responsibility and environmental responsibility, in terms of, so there's going to be a short-term cost in terms of we're adding a green service, and if we make it weekly, there's a short-term cost to that. But the long-term benefit in terms of economic benefit is massive in terms of reducing landfill, but at the same time we're also reducing our environmental impact and also having a great social impact. So I look at my own household in terms of the behavioural change that will have to happen. It's a huge behavioural change, but we all need to be starting to do that. I'm so sick of walking past red bins full of green waste, we have to have that impetus, like it was brought up with the shopping centre shopping bags. We were forced to change, and we changed, and we're all okay. So we have to sometimes have that extra push to help us make the right decisions. And to me, that's what we're all elected for. We're actually meant to be regional leaders, and to me, that's what this actually does, is actually take a leadership position. So I would love to see this lead to a reduction in the red bin from weekly to fortnightly once the behaviours have changed and people are comfortable with it, once the red bins are always being emptied, either with one bag in or whatever. So I just urge us to be able to have the courage to help the community make that change.
Councillor Johnston as the seconder.
Only just to remind the chamber that the red bin is a problem and it will go away with this. And also perhaps to allay Councillor Havig's fears, the EPA has clear guidelines about what composting is, so we can go to that. It's important to recognise that people need to compost appropriately, otherwise they actually add to the problem. So if the depth of the composting heap gets too high, for example, then you generate methane, which is what we're trying to avoid in the first place by having this organic service. So probably people are better off using the organic bin and get Jeffreys to manage it for them properly than do it themselves.
Councillor Havig and then Councillor Schilling.
Just going on from there, Mayor, what I was getting at was that I think when we do the consultation, people really need to be told where it's all going to start, and I understand that people will adjust as time goes on. I'm a firm believer in waste and waste management, and I do that now. So I've got a green bin, and I only put my red bin out once a fortnight. I work out what needs to go in the green bin and what doesn't. And I would encourage people to do the same. I also think we need to do a lot of education on this, because there's so many people using a red bin of green waste, and as I said before, so we need to keep that tonnage down from the red bin, and that's where the expense is.
Councillor Schilling.
So I'd like to know how we can support town garden groups, because I noticed in one of the submissions to the consultation that the town committee, the groups that are doing the Main Street cleanups and pruning the roses are using town bins to put green waste in and red bins. So what can we do to support those volunteer groups who are, cleaning up our town for us? Within this.
Take that on board, actually.
Hey.
I'll take that on board, because I think that would be good to look at.
Yeah, because I noticed, the bowling club, they were cleaning up all the leaf litter from the trees next to the pool, and they just put it in a great big pile. And obviously council comes along and cleans that up at some stage. But just going on from that comment in the consultation was, I thought, we need to be able to support those voluntary groups with green waste.
Yeah, I'm going to talk in support of this motion. During the workshop, I found myself sort of oscillating between this option and the one, I think this was number 6, wasn't it? And then it was number 5.
This is sort of hybrid of 3 and 4.
Yeah, and the one that I was sort of wondering about is almost like a halfway step to getting to where we're going here. I think I'm inclined to agree with Councillor Boothby that it's so hard to educate people on this, because there's just so many floating elements to it, and ultimately they're kind of paying us to do this job for them. They're asking us to, go through the data, looking at the long-term ramifications, and then making those decisions. It's unfair to just expect them to be across all of the issues, and that's why we don't have run the council from the front bar. So, looking at this, for me the most persuasive elements are that if we go down the route of making the green bin the dominant bin, the organics, over time the cost to the community is going to go down. If we leave the status quo as it is now, in the short term it'll be a slight saving, but over time, as we know, the government will continue to increase the levies on waste, and the cost will go up. So we need to maybe take, from a short-term financial hit, there is going to be a short-term financial hit to some members of the community, but in the long run, everybody will benefit from it. But then, as Councillor Boothby pointed out, it's not just about the economics, it's also about changing behaviour, it's about the environment. And if there's one thing we care about in the Barossa, I would think most people would care about the environment. And also, as Mr Mavrinac said, yes, there'll be an increase in the green waste component, but the red waste component will go down, and that maybe will offset the total bill that everybody gets. So it may be that, in fact, the difference could be quite small. I think this is almost one of those things where until you do it, you don't know what the outcome's going to be, but I think we've done as much homework on this as we can. Ideally, this should have happened, what was it, 2 years ago, but we just didn't have enough lead time to sort of do the amount of consultation that we needed. And I think this is one of those instances where we just have to do it, because if not now, then when? And I can see this is going to have to happen eventually. So I encourage everyone else to do it. I think this will be for the long-term benefit of the Barossa.
Councillor Wee-Smith?
I just had a question for Mr Mavrinac. Just picking up on a few comments around short-term costs. I just want to be clear that there will be an increased service charge, so that's going to obviously be an annual fee.
Yes, so there will be, because it's a 3-bin system, yes. But what I'm saying is that, initially there will be that increase because those who have only got 2 bins at the moment will obviously have to pay for the 3rd bin. But as Councillor DeReeves has said, that hopefully with the cost of the red bin reducing, those service charges might drop over time.
They might.
Yeah.
And those who currently...
Because it is dependent, as again, on those government levies. Because we know that the EPA sets the hard waste levy for landfill, so we know that that's always increasing. The current cost for recycling is steadily increasing, but the cost of organics is relatively stable. So we're hoping that there's that trade-off between, the services. Again, if we can reduce our collection service costs, again, for, the number of bins that are out there, those hopefully bring those costs down.
Yeah, start with.
Question?
No, just to clarify on that, and those who already have an organic bin will actually not see an increase, though it'll be status quo for them.
For them, it'll be status quo for the remainder of this financial year, and depending on how the service charges work out for the next financial year, there might be a rise or a drop depending.
Thank you.
Just a question.
Yes, Councillor True.
Just clarifying, so we're talking about an education period of what, 6 months first?
Yeah, leading up to 6 months to the 1st of July, yes.
Okay.
So, because obviously in terms of if this goes through, we would have to negotiate the new service with Solo to commence 1 July. The grant through Green Industries, that they're comfortable with us commencing 1 July. They understand that there's a rollout that we would have to go through. So pretty much from January, we'll start working that education program, the messaging to go out with the new service so that we can roll out the bins, say, by May, June, to then commence 1 July. So we'll use that period to educate.
Just a suggestion, it's a kind of it's, as a teacher, I've known that the biggest way to change a culture is actually with your kids. So I just wonder, this is just a bizarre, like something to think about, that whether we target schools as well, because the pressure that children, and I've had it in my home, the pressure that children put on parents to actually do the right thing is actually quite a force to be, they'll go, why are you putting that in the bin, Mum? We should be putting it in the red bin. Or why don't we have a compost bin? And I just think it might be good to engage. That's thousands of families that we could engage. And even if you had a colouring in book, we go to schools, we do a big, the elected members do a big recycling push. And I think that could be quite powerful, because if they see that we're engaging with that generation, we're going to change a whole culture of the Barossa. So just a thought.
No,
We do have a waste education type officer.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say it through you, Mayor, twofold, because our environment education officer, he already does a lot of waste education as part of his program. So with Natalie also working in that space, the two of them can definitely target schools.
Sure, right.
That, just through you, Mr Mayor.
Yep.
That's on the plan. The challenge is getting in to the curriculum and getting the time.
We could work on that.
I have a question, Mr Mavrinac. is there a way during the 6-month period that we can get an indication prior to the new financial year, those who are going to take up the option? So then we'd have some real numbers that then we can clearly demonstrate before we roll it out that there is some savings for those people who currently got a green waste bin, and also what that real cost would be. Or is that something we can factor in rather than go out and say we're doing it and then we work through a whole 12 months before we work out whether there's savings or what there is? Is there a way we can get that pre-registration so that we can clearly give the ratepayers a true indication of what this is going to cost and what the savings may be?
I think there is a possibility of doing that. If we promote it quite early, that this is the direction that we wish to go, and we say that people have to opt out by a certain date, so let's say end of April as a good target. If we sort of say an opt-out licence or permit, sort of say, is April, that would then give us a number of residents that will opt out with that evidence provided. We can then work out roughly then how many services will actually be in vogue come 1 July, and then we can do the final calculations, because we would have to do that anyway for the budget process to set the service charge. So I think that would be manageable.
You could do that with the rate notices that aren't they due again in March?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the problem with rate notices in March is that not everybody.
Yeah.
So some people would have paid up.
I think it's,
the answer to your question is you can do various types of modelling. You can do advanced modelling and do scenario analysis. That's not difficult to do to start giving some indications. The biggest, I think, swing I mean, this is not necessarily going to be, it was approved not to have them. Well, the lawyer speak for. It's going to be the tonnage. It's going to be tonnage.
Yep.
Yeah, the education is going to be the most important factor. You have a question, or you want to close the debate?
There's no other comment.
I'd like to contribute
Yes.
after my question. So I will be supporting this motion. Just to be clear, my questioning is more around making sure that we are transparent with our ratepayers, and I think it's really important that we're clear that, you know, costs will only maybe decrease if everyone improves their waste management. So we can't go out and say, oh, you know, short-term pain for long-term gain. We don't know. I have had some hesitations around this proposal. We've only had 110 responses from 25,000 ratepayers. That's less than 0.5% of our population who have actually responded to this. So that's not much to go off. I don't feel it really gives us a great gauge. But, you know, personally, I think anything we can do to improve waste management is a good thing to do, but we need to be mindful of these things.
Any further comments? Not, Councillor Boothby, you wish to close the debate?
Thanks, Mayor. That's what I was just going to basically, I think, so education and communication, obviously we talked about, is the most important thing. In terms of Mr Mavronak being able to actually definitively say to a ratepayer, this is what the bottom line impact will be just for you, is going to be really, really challenging and potentially, you know, not necessarily work that is going to, you know, be beneficial to us. To me, it is about saying, so yes, you may need to pay for an additional bin. Yes, there will be an additional service charge. We are, you know, not to, you know, we are all in this together, as we've talked about this year. And this is one of those things where it has to be that group effort to actually achieve what we want to achieve. And we can talk numbers in terms of, if you just the stats in terms of cost per tonne to landfill versus the cost to organics, those are stats that are real. There's plenty of evidence for that. So there's enough financial information we can give people to basically get them on board. And the earlier we start the conversation, the better, in terms of people who do currently do their own composting, as Councillor Johnson said, may actually go, you know what, this is actually going to be another good addition to what I do. So I think that, you know, it is going to be about that stage process leading forward and not have to get too bogged down in the detail. The concept should be enough to sell this, I would have thought.
Thank you. With that, that closes the debate. All those in favour of the motion as put, carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move to 403, and I understand, Councillor Haybick, you have an alternate motion that you wish to Consider.
Mayor.
I'll just get you to we'll just put the motion and then we might get some questions and then we'll see if we get a mover and a seconder.
Just to amend the motion as it stands, part 2 to read, the council will further investigate the option of roadside pickup for hard waste and report back to council within a period of 2 months.
Just put that up on the screen.
Report back to council.
So your intention would be to look at curbside pickup within all townships?
Yes.
Can I ask a question of Councillor Habig, just for
Yes,
clarification?
questions are in order at this point.
Yeah, so Councillor Habig, we've done these in the past. Is there anything in particular that you're seeking from this process that hasn't been done already? Or do you just want us to revisit those past explorations?
So when was the last pickup program done in this region?
Well, when was the last time we explored it? Mr. Mavronek, when would that have been? About a year ago?
In terms of exploring, probably a year or two ago, but in terms of actually having a hard waste collection service, it's
decades, yeah.
That's what
I did.
Yeah.
I did some costings some years ago, so it's quite a while ago.
So we actually had a report came to council about a year and a bit ago, something like that, where or maybe 2 years.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, we had a number of options presented, which led us
where
to
we looked at the costs and all of those. Is that the sort of thing that you're looking at? Just an updated version of that, or are you looking at something different?
Go a bit further than that.
So what?
I'm aware of what's been done in the past,
Mm-hmm.
and so forth. It's been talked about. I think this is very, very important in relation to this.
No, I understand that. Just in order to vote for it, I'd like to know what you want to be done.
If you hear me out.
Sure. Yep.
Would that, yes, you can speak to the motion then, and, well, I need to get a seconder first, sorry. I need to get a seconder. Seconded, Councillor Schilling. Councillor Habig, please speak to it.
Well, first of all, I think that as the voucher system is written up and it stands, there's a very, very small percentage of ratepayers will get any benefit from it. And the reason I say this is that out of the elderly, the people without vehicles, trailers and tow bars, use the voucher. How do they pick up their small fridge and get rid of it? Now last week I had a small fridge that I need to get rid of. My next door neighbour helped me put it in the back of my car and I took it out to Father's Farm. Now lucky enough, I with him could lift it in the back of my vehicle, it just fitted. So if I didn't have a vehicle that I could transport it in, I haven't got a trailer, a tow bar, where do I stand? And where do all the other people in this Barossa Council stand? And I think there's many, many people would be very, very disappointed if we brought in a voucher system, and I would say probably, I don't know how many people, hundreds of people would not be able to use the voucher. So that's where I'm coming from. I think it needs to be further investigated. Come up with an option now. So many other councils use the pickup system, and I think we should go to them and say, how do you do it? What format is it done in? And then work it from there. I believe that Light next door have a system where you can ring up and you'll be given a date when to put your property out. It's picked up. I know the Prospect do the same, I know the Teacher Gully do the same. Why can't we as a council do something similar? So that's where I come from. I think it would be very, very disappointing to have a voucher system a minority of people can use. So that's what I'm putting out there. Further investigation and come back and then further decide.
Councillor Schilling?
No, I support what councillor Hayvick has just said.
Councillor,
Go when you're in.
I was going to go to Mr Maverick, which I've almost called him Councillor Hearn by mistake.
Oh, you wanted. Through you, Mayor, in terms of the voucher system, obviously it is more of a limited number, and like council have a voucher system where they only have 750 vouchers per financial year, and you utilise it whichever way you choose. The restriction to the voucher system is obviously who's our suppliers for the removal of that waste. So we could target a variety of different suppliers. In terms of people who may not have a vehicle, is going to one of those suppliers that does a pickup. So there is that option. So as we get as many broad suppliers on board to the voucher system who are prepared to accept a voucher, because obviously we pay the supplier based on that voucher. The resident presents the $70 voucher to X supplier. They then bill us for that $70, so they don't lose out because we're offsetting that cost. So we could choose 1300 Waste, for instance, who will come and collect a fridge or a sofa from a resident who doesn't have a cart. So there are those options. In terms of a collection service, yes, as Councillor Dries has mentioned, we have looked at various options. There's the annual waste service versus a call and collect service, similar to Teatree Gully, Campbelltown and the likes. They use that service where you ring up, book a date, and someone will come and collect it. It's usually, again, the contractor that the council uses. So we have looked at those options. So we can bring that back as a further report if you wish. Yeah.
Just with the motion, just seek clarification. The way I would interpret that at the moment, that's hard waste, which is the whole council area. I know you sort of indicated just for the townships at this particular time. I think we might have to be somewhat prescriptive if we go out with this. We're going to investigate. There may be an expectation we're going to do the whole council area. Is that?
And that could be brought back as well. With that motion, I don't expect us to travel miles and miles out to farms and places like that, restricted to the townships or the immediate townships.
Well, I would suggest that perhaps with your permission that we include that in that motion, that it is for the townships. Because I know when we did this some years ago, that was the issue. At that stage, it was about curbside collection where people just put it out there, and I know there was a whole lot of issues with the then council about the appearance of the Barossa with stuff stacked all over the curbs. There may be other alternatives, as we've already heard. I guess the thing that we looked at was then if we were going to do it for the townships, why should the rural be disadvantaged? Then if you then excluded the rural area, then you come back to there would be something that would be a charge for everybody within that area, but we're saying there could be a different way of funding that now, because you don't want to put a charge on the townships where 60-70% may never ever use the service. That becomes the issue, I think, with it. I hear where you're coming from and I understand that, but with that, anything you do, it comes at a cost, and whatever services you roll out, do a hard waste collection, then it might be other things that have to go by the wayside. But I just wanted to just clarify that point, whether we're just talking townships. Are you happy for that to be added in that motion? And the second are happy?
Well, at the end of the day, we'll just explore the whole system.
Yeah, just explore.
Well, you can explore all of it. Yeah, well, that's another point. You could.
I mean, the comments that Mr. Maverick made before about the voucher system, if there was a people coming around to pick up the stuff, we can go voucher. I can understand that.
Yeah.
The way the proposal is at the moment.
All right, I'm letting things move around a little bit here, so I think it's a very important one. And I've lost who I was going to go to next. Who had their hand up first?
I think possibly Russell before me.
Thanks.
Just through you, Mayor, I wonder whether it would be wise to have the voucher system still on foot in the meantime while we're investigating these alternatives?
It's still there.
That's not in there at the moment.
Asking for
We've removed it, so is it on foot? Is it still there? Still available?
Based on that, what's up there at the moment, no.
No.
So I wonder if we should have a third point. Continue the voucher system in the meantime.
Up to you, the mover and the seconder, you were still.
I think if Mr. Maverick comes back with options like he was talking about before, the voucher system and companies being involved with the pickup, that's the sort of thing I want to hear. To me, that's a roadside pickup.
So you're still happy for part 2 to be part 3 in this, or?
No.
No? Separate motion altogether. Okay, that's the one you're voting on. All right. Councillor Rees?
Yeah, I still would like to see the voucher system in place as well for the rural community who probably do have trailers and tow bars, so that they're at least not disadvantaged. I noticed that talked about one water level trailer. Mr. Mavronak, I would assume then if you wanted to chuck out an old sofa, that wouldn't comply, would it? Because that would stick up above. So maybe there could be some, if we were to implement that, because I know things like old chairs and sofas and stuff are things which people want to get rid of, and so to knock that on the head, I think would be sort of counterintuitive. No, I actually don't have a problem at all, Councillor Habig, with what you're saying. It's just, as I said, we've sort of visited this before. I just wondered if you were looking at something over and above what we've already looked at. I understand the merits of your argument quite well, and I don't disagree with it in principle.
I didn't know about what Mr. Maverick said before, and with the voucher system and having companies involved. So if I've got a voucher, I can ring up. Someone's going to ring the company, so I've got a fridge to be picked up.
Councillor Habig, Anna has got to pull the reins in a little bit.
Yep.
We're sort of moving around the place and we're getting into.
So if this motion is effectively saying that we will include a voucher system in the material that comes back to us in 2 months' time, is that what we're talking about? If that,
we're actually voting on this motion at the moment. So if you want to include a voucher, I think.
What we'll do, Mr. Mayor, is we will include that as an option for roadside pickup.
Okay, you're going to include that. Okay, all right.
Well, it is an option for a hardware service.
Okay, all right.
That's what we'll
okay,
do.
now I've got you.
okay, so
all right.
So in effect, this is because look, I'm disappointed that we couldn't make the pop-up style thing work. I thought that actually might have been a good solution, but having read the research that's come back, I can see how it would become potentially a nightmare. And yeah, I'm mindful of, if we get queues of people in the towns all queuing up and just out of control, that would be a nightmare. So I don't want to go down that path. Given that, look, we have to revisit this every couple of years. I think let's do it again. I'll be interested to see where we land. The problem seems to be just the cost is always really prohibitive, and that usually is the problem. But I absolutely sympathise with the concerns. This is an awkward situation. I don't think there's an easy solution to it. If there was, we would have done it years ago. That's where we're landing. But I'm happy to accept the motion.
Councillor Boothby?
So I have the same concerns as Councillor Johnston in terms of the motion now removing actually implementing the voucher system for the remainder of 2021. We're talking 6 months that we won't meet again until 27th of January. We won't get that report until presumably the February council meeting. Then we're not going to have much left of 2021. So to me, I'll be voting against this and or suggesting an amendment that we actually do include the voucher for the remainder of 2021 with the idea of actually doing something rather than nothing, because when we get that report, that's still not a decision. That's actually needs a whole, another conversation and another set of outcomes. I agree with Councillor De Vries that we do need to have this conversation again, and we need to have the conversation ongoing. When we do an economic development strategy, hopefully in 2021, that will have the circular economy in there, I can guarantee you, because it's one of it's on every single agenda for every economic conversation, every environmental management conversation, every local government conversation. Lagardis Group's doing work in that space, the LGA is doing work in that space. So in terms of the research that's going to be available to help us solve this problem, I would love to see us do that from a positive way with RDA, with community groups, with the Farmers Farm. So, you know, new technology, innovation, what can we do with this stuff rather than bury it in the ground? Because that's what happens with so much of the stuff that is collected anyway. So I think that we need to have a third part for that resolution, otherwise we're going to continue to do nothing. So I'll be voting against that as it sits.
I've lost who's spoken and who hasn't now. So.
I have the same concerns as Councillor Boothby and Councillor Johnston. I have no problem with the motion as it is, but I do think we need to include the alternate voucher system, because by the time this comes back to the Chamber in February, we're getting towards the end of the financial year. We've done nothing to help ratepayers with their hardened green waste disposal. We're getting into the heat of summer now. I think that's another issue, having this sort of rubbish laying around properties, you know, going into fire season, snakes, etc. So, you know, I'd be happy to propose an amendment that includes the voucher system, if the original mover's happy with that. That's where I'm at.
Can we clarify? I thought this was just an amendment to the original motion.
No, it's different.
No,
If you read the amendment,
So it's a
a new
completely
motion.
new motion.
This is a new motion.
So Mayor, just to shorten it up,
You would close the debate if you speak, councillor.
Can I move that amendment, as I've just discussed, please?
I was about to.
Yeah, I think okay.
Unless David wants to just insert it.
Well, I haven't moved an amendment. I need to hear the you pardon?
I'd like to insert that in the motion that for the next 6 months, the voucher system will operate until we work out through the system.
I don't think that is not talking about the next 6 months, that voucher system working. It's about implement. Oh, it does. Sorry, implement. Sorry, yeah, now I read it properly. Yes, okay.
Only the 2021.
Okay, so I can be clear. I'll just go back to the mover and the seconder. Are you happy for that clause 2 to go as part of your original motion?
Yes.
Leave of the meeting and the seconder?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the other way you can do it.
All clear?
As mine.
I think we've had enough debate. Would you like to close the debate, Councillor Hovick?
I don't think I can say much more than what you said. But I think it's very, very important that we as a council at this stage get it somewhere near right. And it's been sitting around for some time. I know what Councillor Leveris has said, and he's been here for a while, but we haven't had anything cemented as yet, as the saying goes, and I'd like to see that.
Thank you. Put the motion as it's on the screen. All those in favour? Those against? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Councillor Hovick.
This one keeps coming
That
up. And it's just...
now takes us to our confidential agenda, and we have a list of items there to consider: Citizen of the Year, Young Citizen of the Year, Community Event of the Year, Community Project of the Year, and COVID grants update, as well as a matter to do with Mingy Road and Development Services Customer Focus Protocol. Someone move, we go into confidence. Moved Councillor Wee-Smith, seconded Councillor Miller. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you.
One is one of the nominees is my sister.
That's a fairly good reason.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Angus. So we'll deal with the
open and then shut it again. I'll leave it for now.
Thank you, councillors. Now going to the item, Young Citizen of the Year. Is there anybody that may have a conflict before I go into confidence?
If we go into confidence, Your Worship.
Moved Councillor Debris, seconded Councillor Wee Smith. All those in favour? Carried. Just
event,
Event,
community event.
okay.
We'll move to the next item, which is the community event of the year. Is there anyone that has a conflict? Councillor Angus?
Now, I believe, one of the events, I won't say that until it's.
So we're back out of conference.
Are we in confidence?
No, not
No,
yet.
we're
I
out.
just want to see if there's anyone that has a,
Potentially, I don't know.
I'll
Yeah.
probably absent myself.
Oh, yeah.
okay, well, I'll probably.
I won't tell you until, we're in confidence. That, the reason,
The reason.
I won't tell you until we're in confidence, if that's, I mean, I can, but the
I
fact
don't know.
is, one of these events happened in conjunction with Barossa Village, of which I'm a board member.
And I may have a perceived conflict, given that one of the events I had an involvement with, but I had no benefit, but.
Okay, so,
I will,
Participant.
That should be significant, last year should be alright.
I was a participant.
So,
You need to move up.
Organised.
are you in confidence now?
just hang on a minute.
so the councillor, Angus, you're declaring a material conflict because of the board relationship. You're declaring it perceived, but there is no benefit or detriment, you're going to stay in the meeting.
Someone move, we go into confidence. Councillor Johnston and seconded Councillor Wee Smith. All those in favour? Carried.
So I'll declare a conflict of interest in relation to the next one, or I was a direct contributor to that.
So was I.
Hang on a sec, I'll just. Until everyone's in. The next item is the community project of the year. Is any member have a conflict? Councillor Johnston,
Abstaining myself.
can you just state the reason?
Yes, I was a contributor to the project that's been nominated.
Councillor Troop?
And I was a contributor to the project as well, and I forgot about this one, so whoops. So, declaring again.
Council, can we move to go into confidence? Someone like to move? Councillor Angus, second. Councillor Boothby. All those in favour? Carried.
Two to go.
Members, next item is an update on deferred matters with the COVID grants. Is anyone in conflict in that particular one?
Move we go into confidence, your worship.
Moved councillor De Vries, seconded councillor Louise Smith. All those in favour, we go into confidence. Carried. You're out. Members, we'll now look at a confidential item to do with Mingy Road, a noise complaint. Someone move, we go into confidence.
I'll move that one.
Moved councillor Louise Smith, seconded councillor Johnston. All those in favour? Carried.
I'm against, yeah, just because, yeah, is that all
Motion to
right?
carry, the matter will lie on the table.
Councillor Moraes, can you speak so Lewis comes in?
Sorry?
Lewis comes in to say.
Lewis?
131.
Okay.
131.
131 is the Development Services Customer Focus Protocols. Will somebody move that we go into confidence? Move councillor Miller, seconded councillor Wee Smith. All those in favour? All those against?
Mayor, if I may ask the question, why is this in confidence?
I asked that question yesterday.
This doesn't say in the report.
You don't have to have it in confidence, but.
No, I'm happy
but-
for it to be in confidence, but I wasn't going to vote for it because I'm thinking,
Oh,
what are we keeping?
the answer I got was we've got a legal opinion. That's
Okay.
where we come from. Okay,
And
all
it
right.
is stated in
And I'm happy to be.
Councillor Angus's point, though, I did question the same thing, because I think it does, I don't think it doesn't, if we didn't have to do that, I'd rather not.
Yeah.
Because it is basically, there's nothing to hide here.
No.
I don't know why it would be.
Well, then let's go out of confidence then.
Well, look,
Is there a
look,
requirement? Does legal advice?
what I'll do, that's a question before we go into confidence. So
Is there a
I'll ask
requirement?
officers to explain why it is in confidence, because I did ask that question yesterday, because I felt there was merit in it being out, there was some good information in there, but there is another explanation. Which one are you two gentlemen?
Well, just through you, Mr Mayor. The governance of confidential is I'm only making a recommendation based on that you are going to look at the legal advice. If you are comfortable for that to be out in the open, then you shouldn't be passing a resolution. It's not up to us, it's up to you.
But do you want to ask the question first? I'm going to allow you people to answer why you've put it into confidence.
the legal advice that was received.
And then you can vote whether you want it, what you want to do.
So we're not in confidence at the moment.
Debating whether you're going into
Okay.
confidence.
We're just debating on,
The
okay.
door stays open.
Yep.
Through you, Mr Mayor, you have a mover, a seconder, it's because you're receiving legal advice.
Who moved it? Was it me?
Look, I'm
Miller and Weesmith.
going to allow Mr. Montegiuri to explain why it's in confidence, and then we'll work out. I've got a mover and a seconder. You're asking a question now, so I'll get the question answered. Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you, Mayor, through you, and good morning, everyone. The reason why we've decided to put this into confidence is because the legal advice that we've been given isn't designed for public distribution. So, for example, if somebody reads that legal advice, then comes to the council, deals with one of the officers, walks away and says, I didn't get dealt with in the exact same way as the legal advice report that I read, then it creates a liability issue. So they can turn around and say, you know, because there was a failure in this part of the process, for example, in the way I was given advice, then they can say they didn't follow this exact process. The legal advice that we get given is for internal distribution and for all the officers and for the management to interpret on an as-needs basis. So we can't, with that advice, we can't cover off on every single scenario. So to publicly distribute it, then have a customer say, I want to be dealt with in the exact same way as this advice. And the other issue is, of course, we saw what happened with the report in relation to the processing times for the applications. The public doesn't know the full story in relation to those alleged assessment times. And similarly, in relation to the customer service issues that we're covering off in the report, they're all isolated, specific incidences that occurred over a long period of time. Nobody knows the full details. Nobody's investigated each incident, but we've used those incidents as a calling card to up-spec our customer service and provide better service in relation to those types of examples without exception.
Okay, what I'm going to now is back to the move. We've got a move to go into confidence and a seconder. So I'm going to put the motion And if you
Hang
defeated,
on, I moved it, didn't I?
yes, you did.
Can I modify the motion?
Councillor Miller moved.
I might, look,
Oh, yeah.
I'm comfortable with the reasoning given to us by Mr Montefiore, so I'm willing to let it continue.
I'm not willing to second it.
Pardon?
I'm not willing to second it.
Okay,
It's your
I'll
choice.
second it.
Can I move an amendment?
you can.
But I'd like to seek advice from.
Yeah, just hang on. Okay. Now we've got a mover and a seconder.
It's subject to legal privilege in this part.
I'm sorry,
You can't have a legal
No, no.
privilege. Got to get calories. That exposes.
But the majority.
Do you agree that
What's that?
I think once you've seconded it, you've seconded it. You need to defeat
That's
it.
all right, I just won't vote for it.
We've got an amendment though.
Yeah.
And now you can do this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I'd like to seek advice on the wording because it might even be moot. Seems to me the problem is not going into confidence, it's about releasing the information once we've come out of confidence. Would it be appropriate to let the legal advice remain in confidence, but all other elements in the agenda?
You just beat me, you beat me to it.
You've actually worded that?
You can release whatever you like as part of the.
So do I even need to move an amendment or can we just do that at the end?
You can't move that amendment because keeping stuff in confidence is part of the resolution that you deal with as part of the debate item.
Okay, so how do we then action that intention?
If you go into confidence, you deal with them as part of the debate item.
Yep.
The
Oh, I see.
resolution
Okay.
on the matter.
All right, then I don't want to move an amendment after all.
Okay. So the motion is that we go into confidence.
And then we can address the.
Okay.
thing.
I'll put the motion, we will go into confidence. All those in favour, we go into confidence. Those against, it is carried. Members, next item we have urgent other business is request for leave of absence. Councillor Louise Smith is,
I'll declare a conflict.
yes, from January to the 31st of March.
I'll move that should be granted leave of absence now.
With Councillor Angus, and I think Councillor Hayvick, you had your name up, your hand up? Yes.
She got something important to do?
Yeah, something important.
All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. Wait for Councillor Louise Smith.
Chamber.
You've been granted leave, Councillor Louise Smith,
all right.
for your
I'll
other
do what I
very
need to do.
important duties. And we wish you well.
Yeah,
And,
absolutely.
and look, just prior to closing the council meeting,
Another one.
I don't need one anymore.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, 9.2 has been withdrawn because Councillor Boothby doesn't need it anymore.
oh yes, okay.
Just so it's on the record.
I've already crossed that one out, sorry, so thanks.
Thank you.
Yes, Councillor Boothby, because we had date changes for January, is fine. So I wish you all a very, very merry and a safe Christmas, and look forward to seeing you in the new year. Unless there's an urgent other matter that crops up in the meantime. So with that, I'll officially close the meeting. Our next meeting is scheduled for the 27th of January. That's 1 week later than normal. It's traditionally what we've done. I think that was mainly because round a tour down under, but it's still in place, so that's good. It works out well. So with that, I'll close the meeting. But before you go, I just want to, outside of the council meeting, Mr. Allen.